Welcome to the Spirit of Healing, the podcast about all aspects of spirit and healing from the healing activity of the Inayatiya Sufi order, which can be found at inayatiya.org.
I'm Dr. Rakib Misha Kogan, Shafayat and Co-Vice President of Healing Activity.
And I'm Nurlima Smith, a Shafayat and also Co-Vice President of Healing Activity.
Pirzia Inayat Khan is the scholar of religion and teacher of Sufism in the Universalist Sufi lineage of his grandfather, Hazrat Inayat Khan.
And Pirzia is president of the Inayatiya and founder of the Suluk Academy, a school of Sufi contemplative study and practice. He's also the author of many books, including most recently, Immortality, A Traveler's Guide.
Welcome to Spiritual Healing Podcast, Pirzia.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. It's lovely to be speaking with both of you. And I'm happy to be speaking about the book Immortality, which I wrote because my grandfather's book, The Soul, Whence and Whither, has always been really my favorite of his works. And I've come back to it again and again in the course of my life and always found tremendous enrichment in it. But what surprised me was to hear oftentimes from friends and acquaintances that they had a hard time with The Soul, Whence and Whither, the hard time getting into it. It wasn't easy to relate to, they said. So I was sorry to hear that. And I thought, is there a way to make these teachings a little more accessible, to provide a way in? And that was the motivation behind the book. And also I was aware that at the time of writing, the centenary of the book was just coming up. And in fact, we're in that centenary year right now. I'm in Suresnes in France right now, and it was exactly here a century ago that these teachings were given. So it seemed timely to try to bring these teachings out to the attention of the world a century later in a way that hopefully provides an opportunity for a new generation of readers to read these teachings not merely as the record of something that was given a long time ago, but a still very relevant, still very acutely timely contemplation of our state of being as human beings. And so the title, Immortality, concerns something that is universal to all of us. You know, human beings are very diverse. We practice different religions. We speak different languages. We belong to different nationalities and have very different kinds of experiences. But a fundamental reality that we all share is the inevitability of death. We all know that death is coming, and yet death remains a great mystery. We know that all of us will suddenly face the dissolution of our body and the end of life as we know it, but it's not clear what comes after that. Now, in the book, I tried to show that already now we have indications of what the sequel will be like. The sequel is already here with us in the inner dimension of our present experience, in our own interior life. And so death isn't the mystery that we suppose that it is. It's more the opening up of our life so that externalities fall away and we delve deeper and deeper into the depths of what is already here.
I have been a volunteer with hospice for many years, and I'm one of the people who sit with folks at the end and help them with their transition. I was struck by how comforting the book was, and I look forward to using parts of it with my clients. I personally, I was especially struck by your section that dealt with death and that we will not be alone, that we will be immediately surrounded by those who are coming and those who are going and from the different realms. So to me, that was very comforting and very striking.
Yes, well, thank you for connecting the book with the situation of people who are coming toward the end of their lives and are looking for the meaning of their life and are preparing themselves for the transition that is ahead. If this book can be useful to people who find themselves at that juncture, then certainly it will have been worth bringing into the world, because that is a time that is very poignant, and certainly it can be very challenging, but also it can be a time of tremendous heart opening and the harvesting of the wisdom of years of living. So I'm very glad to hear that you are able to be with those who are undergoing this transition, and that accompaniment is very important, as you say. And there are companions. Sometimes a lonely person might find themselves alone in death, which can be very frightening. But as you say, not all beings are visible beings, and we have relations with beings that are invisible, including ancestors and angels and jinn. And so we are surrounded by a community of which we are not always fully aware. So there are beings who are aware of us and watching over us, even when we are not aware of them. And this is one of the subjects in the book.
Yeah, I find that the topic that you picked, and I would love to hear why you picked this topic, is so timely. When I first came across initial information about the book, it was just at the time when professionally I've been dealing a lot with this whole actual biomedical field of quote unquote immortality, where there's a push to say that eventually science will reach a point where our physical bodies can live immortally. And I always struggled with the even idea of extending life beyond certain horizon in an artificial means. And so it struck such a strong chord in me, saying, I mean, the immortality is already here. Immortality is of our souls, and it's so obvious, and yet I think we're trying to pretend that we can hold on to the physicalities of us here. So I just want to hear your reflections on this.
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting subject, and you as a doctor, and particularly as a geriatric doctor, have special insights into the need for balance in medicine between supporting the biological existence of a person as fully as possible, and yielding to nature itself. when that is the graceful necessity. And so the philosophy reflected in immortality is one of working with nature, working in concert with nature, but never forcing the hand of nature. And so an attempt to achieve a medicalized immortality for the body could certainly be seen as an attempt to override nature's own wisdom. And the dangers of that are obvious, because we live in a finite planet. And if we would continuously push back the date of our own dissolution, it would mean that we would leave no room for newly incoming souls. Our death opens a door for new souls to enter this world. We each have our turn. We each have our chance. And if we would overstay that chance by decades after decades, centuries on centuries, then this world would be squeezed terribly. It's part of the natural beauty of this world that we have just a certain number of days. We come and we go, and we accept this, and others come, and the world is enriched and transformed and renewed by this constant caravan that moves through it. So rather than trying to latch on to this particular condition desperately, what we need to see is that our journey is a journey, and we will linger here and there for certain periods of time, but ultimately we're travelers. And our task is not to stand still and resist the tide of transformation, but instead to learn to travel well, to navigate the landscape with wisdom and kindness and love.
So that's why the second part of the title is The Traveler's Guide, huh?
Yeah. There's a word I love, which is, the word is suluk.
Mm-hmm.
And suluk means traveling, but it also means the way of traveling. So it also means the etiquette of travel. So suluk can mean a fine behavior, a fine way of being.
Mm-hmm.
Suluk is a manner that is generous and elegant, because that is the manner that is conducive to the great journey.
Well, there are 180 passages. I just want to kind of point out how it's constructed. So there's a little blurb at the actual saying that Murshid said, and then there is a kind of an interpretation and an offering of a practice or an attunement. Any particular ones you want to tell our listeners and maybe talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yes. Well, the teachings in the book cover 3 phases of human existence. The first is the phase prior to our earthly incarnation. So Murshid speaks about the origins of the universe and the existence of the soul in its primal home, in its original place, so to speak, but it's a place beyond time and space. So it's a placeless place, but the original condition of the soul's life as an angel, the soul's subsequent life as a jinn, a mental being, a psychic being, a being that thinks and feels but doesn't yet wear a body. and then the descent of the soul into the body, which brings us to the second part of the book, which is about our life on earth, our life within these senses, our life as individual human beings. And then it goes on to the third part, which is about death and our return to the jinnic sphere and the angelic sphere, and ultimately the resorption of the soul in God. So those are the three parts. And as you say, each little chapter begins with Murshid's own text. And then I paraphrase or restate the text in different words. And then there's a recommended contemplation or a practice of some kind. And these practices are ones that sometimes can be done immediately while you hold the book. You could just close your eyes and reflect on the subject that is introduced. Sometimes the practice would involve going out, going for a walk, or going to a particular place. And the reason that this book is meant to be read slowly is that these practices need time to sink in. So one can't always just do them immediately or do them in a matter of minutes. I'll give you an example. The 65th chapter offers this practice. In the morning, choose a primordial idea, such as justice, love, majesty, or subtlety. Spend a few minutes with your eyes closed, repeating the name of the idea and sensing its meaning. Then open your eyes and resolve through the course of the day to recognize the signs and manifestations of the idea wherever they appear. At the end of the day, again, close your eyes, repeat the name of the idea, and surround it with all that you have seen and heard that agrees with it. So this is a practice that really takes up at least a day and probably several days. You would wake up in the morning, choose an idea, a theme, a fundamental theme of existence, something foundational to the human personality, something like love or justice. And then you would look for the signs, the evidence of that idea, that name, in every situation all through the day, and also look for chances to embody it and express it in your life. And at the end of the day, you would reflect and, as it were, glean all of these perceptions of the idea and surround yourself with that atmosphere. So it involves concentration. One could easily read this paragraph and then flip the page and go on to the next paragraph, and it would be an interesting idea maybe, but it wouldn't become an experience. It would become an experience if you practice it, and that's what the book is suggesting. I've got a couple other pages marked I could read, but anything to ask about that, about the idea of working with the practices in the book?
Well, that's what I've been doing for the past, I read the whole thing first quickly, and then I said, okay, and so I'm at around, I haven't gotten to 65 yet. I'm at 32. Yeah, it honestly feels more like it's not a big book. It's small and there's only 300 some pages in this small format. It's probably gonna take a whole year to go through this.
Hmm.
And but it feels more dense than some of the very comprehensive Mershid's teachings just by the nature of this engagement. Norlima and I have been waking up at 7 a.m. and meditating together in different parts of the country. And so I've started incorporating this as part of that morning routine. So yeah, it's I think I've always wanted to engage with these teachings, and I find like sometimes reading Mershid is difficult. Like, and forget the fact that the language in itself is very difficult. So I think my English by now is good enough, but the density of it and processing, I almost often, especially in the, since we do a lot of reading of the healing volume, I keep myself finding I reread the same section, I get completely different meaning every time. I was like,
Yeah.
what could this be? So I think this level of going into the small portion, but then translating it and retranslating and go offering into practices is tremendously powerful, because it allows to us have a very personal connection and experience of each piece.
And that personal practice makes these very manageable bites that you can not only experience, but you can actually absorb by doing it over time. I'm only on exercise 16. I'm very slow at this, but I
Take your
find
time. Take your time.
I'm relishing it as I go through it. Like Rakib, I read it first, and I'm now going through and doing the exercises. Our teacher, Hezrat Anayat Khan, wrote, and he spoke a great deal about spiritual healing. There's an entire volume on this topic. In Immortality, there are passages that cover this topic. And is there one in particular that you could highlight for our listeners?
Yes, well, in general, I would say that the book is very much concerned with the subject of healing, in this sense that one can understand healing essentially as a movement toward wholeness. And so the focus of the book is on experiencing ourselves as a whole, and not simply as a body or a soul, but both at once. And in our modern secular world, it's very common to think of ourselves exclusively as a body, and to think of consciousness as a byproduct of the brain. That's the normative paradigm. On the other hand, in some spiritual traditions, the emphasis is so much on the soul that the body is seen as an impediment, something to be transcended, something to be escaped from, and the sooner the better. But Murshid's vision is a vision of integration. And so the whole teaching of The Soul Whence and Whither is a teaching of affirming the manner in which the soul is expressed in the mind and expressed in the body. And the body provides an opportunity for the soul's further unfoldment. And much of our malaise, much of our tension and pain has to do with the disconnect that prevails between the different parts of ourselves, between mind and body, between soul and body. And also between this body and the larger body of which it is a part, the body of the earth, which is part of the cosmos. So all of the teachings in this volume have to do with reconnecting parts of ourselves that have become mutually estranged. And arguably, this is the essence of what we mean by healing.
Yeah, such a powerful words you just said. I think in clinical practice, I see so many conditions where it's quite obvious that that disconnect is causing, if not all, but at least a very large proportion of patients suffering and their symptoms. And yet, we often apply medical tools to it, and then our outcomes are horrible. In fact, we probably, in most of those cases, we make the patient worse, not any better, because we're not going to the root cause of their problem. I find lately, well, I've always been very close to nature, but to me, a big portion of the book is all about nature and how we heal ourselves with nature. In essence, that's sort of like one of the essential interpretations. But part of it is when I was kayaking recently, I came to a powerful realization that, we are destroying our resources. We are really harming the earth. And I show the kids the pleasures that I can obtain and the depth of healing and experiences. And yet I can't stop thinking that their kids may not have that. And you've been talking about this for a long time. And so for me, lately, this whole process of healing is no longer engages just me, but I want to engage somehow the whole planet into the process and sort of say, so I think the question that I have for you is, as a community of healers, what can we do, beyond sort of our individual work in our communities?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's really wonderful that there are people such as yourselves who are in the medical professions and who practice the best available contemporary medicine, and at the same time approach it within a very wide and deep perspective. That is to say, not looking at medical conditions in isolation, but looking at the whole person, looking at the soul, looking at the psyche, and also looking at the larger body of that person, which is the earth. I think we can say that each of us has a little body and a large body, and the large body is the cosmos. It's the greater body of each one of us. And for us as earthlings, that cosmos expresses itself as this planet. And so there's going to be a constant affinity and resonance, and you might even say entanglement between the condition of the planet and the condition of our own body and the condition of our own mind. The planet has its own body, has its own mind, and has its own soul. And our body, mind, and soul is very much bound up in that greater being. And so when we bring affliction to the planet, there's no question but that it will redound to us. And similarly, the more that we can bring healing and renewal to the planet, we're going to be healed ourselves this way. So healers cannot afford to think only in terms of individuals, separate individuals. We all have to think of communities, landscapes, oceans, skies, forests, and unfold the possibilities of healing within those vaster communities of life.
Just letting these words of wisdom to sink in. I think we're going to be processing some of what you're saying for a long time. We can probably keep you here forever and ask you so many questions, but I know your time is short. So I want us to shift a little bit. We were just talking, Noralim and I, that we get this newsletter, Zemfir, every time you email it, and we were just looking. There's so many offerings, and they're so broad now. There's no longer just alchemy or just the world. It's just so many different things. So we kind of just wanted to get a sneak peek. What's upcoming? You suddenly expanded yourself so quickly. How do you have time to all this? And you're in Europe now. You haven't even came back to the States yet.
Yes, well, I'm thankful for having so many collaborators who do so much. I can't do very much on my own, but together we can do a lot, and we're certainly doing a lot. I plan to be in Holland in just over a week, and we'll have a gathering at the Universal Murad Hasil in Katwijk by the sea, which is the place that Murshid had a mystical experience in the dunes. And so it's a very unique place, a very wonderful place. I'm looking forward to seeing especially Dutch friends there. And then not long after that, a visit to England. I've been invited by the London Sufi Center, and so we'll have a weekend together there, and the subject actually is immortality. And then returning to the States, Saluk is ongoing, our Saluk Academy course, and then a number of online courses. And these include a course related to the new volume 5, the 5th volume in the Sufi Message series. And so it's been a couple of years since the next installment of the Centenary series came out. The last one was at least 2 years ago. So we're really excited to be seeing the next volume coming out just in time for this course in the autumn. So what we've been doing all over the world is getting these books and reading them together, and then we go online and go into them. And actually the first part of the volume is the book, A Sufi Message of Spiritual Liberty, which is the first book that Murshid wrote, and in a way the only book that he wrote, because his later works were all collections of oral discourses, but the first one he actually wrote himself. And as someone of Russian background, you might be interested to know that it was first published in Russia, in Russian.
Wow. I didn't know that. Wow.
Didn't know that. Yeah.
So I may be able to get it in Russian and read it in Russian.
Yeah, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting. Yeah, you know that Murshid's works are coming out more and more in Russian, published in Russia. There's a group that's bringing them out and doing a really good job, beautiful volume. So that's good news. Yeah. And then another course on the Istilahata Sufia of the Sufi teacher who was a commentator on the works of Ibn Arabi. His name was Sheikh Kashani, Abdul Razak Kashani. He produced a very interesting dictionary of Sufism. And at the Astana, we've been going through that dictionary over the last several months. We finally made our way through all of the words under the letter Aleph, A. So we're ready to move on to Be, the B words. But at the same time, we're exploring Murshid's vocabulary at the same time. And there's a lot of overlap because Murshid uses a lot of those same words, but also there's certain words that he uses that aren't in Kashani's dictionary, including Sanskrit words, because his Sufism is one that it's an Indian Sufism that incorporates yogic and Vedantic terminology. So our exploration of the lexicon of the Sufis will continue. And then we have the first installment of what's going to be a series of offerings on sacred history. And this first unit is about the very beginnings of humanity and the first prophets and the interactions between human beings and the primordial spirits of the earth. And so we're going to study Murshid's teachings on these subjects and also the teachings of Sufis like Rumi and Ibn Arabi and Shah Wali Allah, and delve into the Qisas al-Anbiya legends. These are the stories of the prophets. And so in the course of, God willing, in the course of a series of gatherings of this kind, we'll make our way through history, through the various periods of history, right up till current times, tracking the movement of spirit through various lineages throughout the world.
And of course, you'll be joining us for the healing activity retreat.
Yes, very much looking forward to that. Yes.
October 19th to the 23rd. We're delighted that you'll be joining us this year.
Well, thank you so much for that. I look forward to it.
And of course, we'll make sure that all this links to all the courses you mentioned in the book. We'll put it all in the description to the video. So, well, our time is coming to an end, dear Bo, and maybe there's some last thing you want to tell to our listeners, or anything else to add?
Perhaps another,
Yes, I'm sorry.
or perhaps another selection, whichever, whatever you'd like.
Yes, maybe I'll read a selection. And let me just first of all thank you very much for this conversation. It's a delight to see you both and to speak with you, and looking forward to seeing you in October. So let me read one of the last chapters. This takes place when the soul has returned from the physical world to the inner spheres and has even transcended at last the world of minds and has found its way back into the angelic heavens. What is life like then? These are Murshid's observations, first of all. The life of the souls in the angelic is incomparably longer than the life of those on the sphere of the jinn. No more desires, no more ambitions, no more strivings have they, only the aspiration to reach further, to experience a greater happiness, a tendency to go on further, closer to that light which is now within their sight. They are flying around this light like the moth around the lantern. The magic lantern, which is the seeking of all souls, is now within their horizon. Nothing else has a greater attraction for them than this light that is continually burning before them. Those are Murshid's words, and now this paraphrase. Life's journey culminates in a vast expanse, almost a timeless one. everything incidental dissipates. What remains is a deathless allegiance to the essence of reality, a ceaselessly deepening constancy, unfolding in waves of bedazzlement, surrender, and rapturous worship. Each sigh draws the soul closer to the mystery of mysteries, whose being is the consummation of all that exists. And this is the practice. Call a conference of your body, mind, and soul. When all three are present, first address your body and ask, what is your wish? Listen to your body's answer and spend a few minutes considering it without judgment. Next, ask the same question to your mind. And again, carefully consider the answer you receive. Thirdly, ask the soul. When your soul tells you the object of its desire, lose yourself in the attraction of what the soul longs for. Find recalls of your body and mind and discern how the soul's desire is reflected in them in a certain fashion.
Thank you, dear Perzia. So this is all the time we have for today. Rakib Nisha Kogan.
And this is the Spiritual Healing Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nerlima Smith. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much.